Oh, no, sorry, wait. That's tonight. Um, Hi, y'all. Thanks so much for being here. We're super excited to be here at Lightbox. Um, you okay, Mark? All right, good. Mark's a buddy of mine for the last 40 years, so not intimidated by interrupting. It's beautiful. Hey, thanks everybody for coming. Welcome to how to sell the SH asterisk T out of your work. I think you know what the T stands for. No, the asterisk stands for. Really excited to be here. Lightbox is an amazing conference, and so I'm really happy to share this stuff that we have to share with you today. My name is Dave Zaboski. I'm a former animator with Disney Studios. I worked on projects like Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, Pocahontas, Hunchback of Notre Dame. I was an animator during what was called the second golden age of animation. Since then, I've probably done just about everything. So I left Disney to start a consultancy and then kind of do other things. So I've shown my fine art worldwide. I've done concept art for movies and television. I've done some stuff with the Dalai Lama. I've been the expedition artist on a search for a lost temple in the Andes. Asked me about that one at some point. And recently, during the pandemic, we started this company called Lightro. And our mission with Lightro is to be able to get work for creatives. And so we have a kind of marketplace that aggregates elite creatives. We run the admin, and then we bring in companies so that we help artists get work. And so it's pretty exciting. In our first year of business, we're going to make about $1 million. We're on track to make $1 million for creatives. Right? So that doesn't even count our margins. So we're really excited about what we're creating. You can see our booth at booth 821, and we're right by Wacom and ArtStation. One of the things that really happened with me while we were there was that we brought in sales. And so I have learned a ton about the sales process. How do we find companies that want work for creatives? And so we hired a master salesman. And what I learned was that sales is not just sales. There's more to it. How to be you in selling something and sharing your gifts with the world. And so, I have learned so much. I thought I'd seen a ton. And then this young man over here shows me that he's got a mastery in his discipline that's the same as the mastery in mine. And so I'm delighted to introduce, and we're going to share with you together some amazing things that I think are going to make a real difference for your career. And it's my delight and honor to introduce a collaborator and a colleague that I really love working with, Drake DeBiasse. Is this mic check? Is this on?
Well, this isn't on, so I'll speak loudly. But yeah, thanks, Dave.
Yeah, come on in. Hey, yeah, Matt, come on. All right. I know the guy. It's illegal for you to be anywhere. All right. That's also one of our collaborators. Matt Danzig is our product guy, so you want to come and check us out. So.
My background, I just want to say first off, this is the most gracious community of artists and professionals that I've been around, and Dave, is really leading that charge, and so thanks for your kind words. A little bit about myself. I've been in sales for as long as I can remember. My first sales job was about as a 10-year-old. I was selling Christmas trees on the lot, paying for basketball uniforms and gas, pretty much. And my dad told me something really simple that he was stuck with me, even at the highest level of selling, is that you go talk to somebody about a sales opportunity. You just want to introduce yourself. You want to ask them questions so you can understand what would make them happy through this experience at the end of this thing. And then ultimately just take them to and present what would make them happy. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that, even at the highest level, selling an enterprise or what have you. And so I've really tried to carry that through my career and keep it simple. And since then, I really cut my teeth in what we would call like a high-volume sales organization called Yelp. I'm sure everyone's used it. It's one of the biggest sales organizations in the whole country. When I was hired there, I was basically doing a local sales job that 3,500 other people were doing. Every second of my day was measured by software, and my minimum viable day over there was 100 cold calls, 3 hours of talk time, and then there was a bunch of other metrics that we needed to follow to quote have a good day. And so with that, with all that volume, it really gave me the opportunity to explore my techniques, find my voice, and really just hone my craft through so many reps. And ultimately, not everyone has 100 calls a day for multiple years, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone, frankly. So, we're here to try to just distill some of this knowledge and share it.
Right, and so we've got so much time and so little to share. Oh no, wait, scratch that, reverse it. We've got a ton of stuff for you today, and so we've got a slide deck here that's got a lot of information on it, not all of which we're going to be able to get through. And so we've got a couple of QR codes at the end of this, so you can hit us with the hit those QR codes, and then that'll get you to give us your email, and then we'll send you the deck. Right? So there's a lot of stuff on there, and we're going to dump a bunch of information on you, and you may not be able to manage all of it today, but we're going to make this deck available so that you can go through it, because we've got some really, really killer things. I have been learning from Drake about this idea of sales, that what he was saying is that it's not trying to sell somebody. It's being you and finding the right person. So we're going to share with you 5 principles, and then there's kind of sub-principles to those, but we're going to share with you these 5 principles that we believe make all the difference in the world. And so I invite you to take notes if you want, but recognize that you can also get this deck if you need it. So if it helps just to focus, then however you want. I know that there's a lot of pencil movers in this room, and I'm probably going to see a couple of sketches of me or Drake before the end of this, so because that's how I am, right? Yeah, I'll have to be facing the other way. All right, so here's the first one. Buyers for your work exist. So be yourself. We're going to go deeper into all of these. We're going to do this first level on this. Now let's go back and let's run through all of them. All right.
Inputs lead to outputs, and there's a lot of power in the process that we put behind it.
Right, agreements matter. So you got to set achievable boundaries so your agreements work for you.
And do great work. That is clear as day doing that LightBox. So just continue to do that, and doing great work means you can stay correct.
Then the last one is finish strong. That means leave no doubt, right? So these are things that we're going to go deeper into now. Let's go to the first one here. So the principle is buyers for your art exist. So everybody, take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. All right? Like we all get a little bit crispy. How am I going to make my career work? What's going to happen, right? The truth is, some guy slapped a banana on a wall with some duct tape and sold it for $250,000. Your work is going to find a home. Okay? Right? So just know that buyers for your work exist out there. It doesn't matter what you do, how fringe or cute or scary or monstrous or small, or there are people out there. So you'll find them. It's going to be okay. Now, then we'll go deeper. How do you find them? But I want to just take that little heat off a little bit right now, just to know that there are buyers for your work out there. That's one of the first things that I learned from Drake. You show somebody something, if they're not an F yes, then they're a no. So it's okay. You show somebody something, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And now how can I be of service? Right? And so it is a matter of being yourself and finding that voice. That's what Drake was talking about. Find your voice. Oh, so that's the other thing I wanted to share with y'all. We're going to do theory and practice. Okay, we might not be able to get all of the practices done in this, but we're not going to just talk about theory. There are going to be some practices here for this. Okay? So, I can't read this from over there, but the idea is that you want to figure out, all right, so where are your people? Where are they located? Who are they? Nike did these processes where they figured out who their personas were, and then they sold to that person. They made a whole person out of thin air, right? So who is it that you're selling to? Who is the perfect person who's going to look at your stuff and know that you're a gift to them worth paying for? Right, so that's the first practice. Is there anything else I missed on that? Oh, I can't see it on this one. I want to come in front of this or stand on the table or something. All right, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so a good way to do this is to think about it from your buyer demographic. So here's some cues here to think about your buyer in this context. And so these are really classic ones. user researchers and folks like this can use for decades and decades and decades. And so the same really works for all of you as well. So again, we're going to keep it simple, use what's always been working. And one thing to call out here is, you really want to identify not only who they are, but where are they? Where do they hang out? Obviously, there's a lot of buyers and folks here, and this is a great opportunity for sales. However, this really doesn't scale past one time a year. And so the idea that we're trying to help you all with is how do we create a scalable system to find folks online so that you can up your sales and not just have to be selling your work in person, where these are high investment places to be. So there's cheaper and really reliable options out there.
All right, so we're going to do a quick little exercise here. So you're going to turn to the person next to you, and you guys kind of pair up, but there's a little odd number. So you three can do it with yourselves over there. You guys are all, that whole row, you're all odd, all of y'all over there. But so, all right, so maybe kind of in groups of 3 or 2. Take a minute each. All right, first of all, find who you're going to pair with, and then pick an A or a B. Right now, let's do that. Or a C, an A, B, or a C. All right, cool. Now what we're going to do, the B's are going to go first. You got about a minute. I know, it's 3 off there, right? I didn't know that C's was a choice. I could have done that one too. All right, the B's are going to go first and describe to your partner what your perfect client is, what your perfect buyer is, who and not just like the studio, but like the work that you make, the work that brings you here. Who is the perfect person that would see the work that you have as a gift? And we're going to take a minute each. And so B's, go ahead and start. All right, we'll start to bring it home now. And when you're ready, you can kind of bring your attention back up here. All right. All right, how was that? Have a lot of you thought about that before, or is this kind of new, right? So like, what is it that is going to delight the person that buys your work, right? And to get some clarity on that is super important. And so this is just the beginning. We're going to kind of just, touch the top of all of this stuff. But that's just another thing to think about. So the first thing is, there's a buyer for your art. Be yourself. Know who they are and where they're located, and go get them, right?
So speaking of going and getting them, how do you find more buyers? So here's a tool that I wanted to highlight for you all. It's called Fan Connection. No relation, no marketing.
It's a good time of year for Phantom Buster, though, don't you think?
So this is a tool that you can use to generate leads from all the major networks out there. Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, Discord, etc. The list goes on. And I wanted to call this out because this is an extremely powerful tool, and they have a really robust training center. So you can get trained up on this tool in advance, and then you see there's a 14-day free trial. And my hunch here is that I think you all could find and source a year plus worth of leads in that 14-day free trial offer. And then cancel it. You got the rest.
Okay, wait. Hold on. So, all right, so what you're saying is that I start with YouTube, I do all the training videos on Phantom Buster, I learn how the thing works, I strategize what I want my next year to be, and then I do the 14-day trial, I suck everything I can out of Phantom Buster, and then I cancel the trial and I got all of these leads for free.
Exactly right.
Sales people, man, it's awesome. Right? All right, that's cool. What else you got?
Here's a couple of tangible examples. So, I was thinking about you all and thinking about on Instagram. So, if you're looking for your target buyer, think about someone else whose specialty is similar to yours, whose medium is similar to yours. But maybe they're a lot more popular than you. That's great that there's competition out there. Leverage it. And so, with Phantom Buster, you look at this first line here, Instagram followers, our followers, Instagram followers collective. So basically, think about this. You can go to LightBox's Instagram, for example. You can use Phantom Buster to download every single account that follows LightBox. And then from there, you can start to refine that list based on these demographic characteristics that we just identified with your buyer. What's your geography? What's their demographic? How old are these people? All this information, if you can believe it, you can get right to Phantom Buster. And so you can do the same thing on LinkedIn. all those recruiters that you wanted to talk to this, this conference, you didn't make it happen, that's okay. You can use Plant Investor, create a search of all the recruiters at all the studios or wherever you want to work, and then you can start to auto-connect with those people. You can follow them. You can start to build community using these tools in a way that you don't have to be having just one-on-one FaceTime, like, hey, here's my portfolio, what are you doing for work? Like, just getting in with these people and starting to follow them, they follow back, you comment on their stuff, and so it goes. And all these, the Phantom Investor tool really just allows you to do this at immense scale. There's hundreds and thousands of people.
And when I was first working, I would think I'd find somebody who did a really similar thing that I did that was more popular maybe. And you got to know, in martial arts, we say there's always a higher mountain. So I want to also let you know, there's always going to be somebody who's amazing out there. Love them up. Figure out what it is that's so amazing about them, right? They're colleagues. They're part of your community. I used to think, well, if they have something like what I make, well, they don't need it anymore. And one of my mentors said, well, if they have something that looks like what you make, then they like that stuff, right? That they're a buyer for that stuff. And so using Phantom Busting, using these tools to connect you with other buyers in your lane, I mean, it's fantastic. You've already pre-qualified them. You know that they're looking for work like yours.
Perfect. So, to bring it all home, once you know who your buyer is, once you know where they're at, now it's just up to you to be yourself. And that's what we're really trying to do every day, right? And so, again, try to keep it simple. I always think back to my dad's advice, my 10-year-old self. Introduce yourself, gather some information with questions, understand where they see value, provide the solution, and feel great about asking for business, because that's why we're all here. Right?
You're a gift that they'll gladly pay for. That's who you want to be talking to.
Yeah.
And they're out there.
Yeah.
All right?
And the last thing I'll say about this is through all these opportunities, you'll find your voice. So don't worry about pressing on your voice. You just have these opportunities, have these organic conversations, and you'll find it over time. It does take a little bit of time, but the more you put yourself out there, you do it.
And that leads us to this next one. Inputs lead to outputs, right? So finding your voice, it's going to be a matter of using it, right? So inputs lead to outputs. Once you've qualified leads, once you've found that watering hole, well, go get them, right? And then you got to know that not everybody is going to want everything that you have. And I don't know, I have this sentence in here. I think it's on the next slide. Oh yeah, no, here it is. Even among the people who buy your art, most of them will like only a part of most of your stuff only about half of the time. It's like the Hobbit at the very beginning where he's like, I can't remember exactly how he did it, but it was so perfect. It's like, I like half of you, not as much as the other that I haven't, anyway. Half as well as you deserve, and the other is not as much as I should. Anyway. So it's something like that. The point of this is that even with the people that like your work, they're only going to like a part of it. So inputs lead to outputs, meaning that you got to know what inputs you want to put in. If you need, in a year, to do 100 pieces, 100 commissions, how many people do you talk to get 100 commissions, right? And so if you understand that that's part of the structure of how my business works, then you just know I got to do 500 inputs. I talk to 500 people, and if that's the case, I set up systems to talk to 500 people, and my career works, right? So it's not so random or scary, or we don't have to be so desperate. So there are systems and practices out there to make this work.
Yeah, and so the sub-principle here is process and style. And so to really be able to dial in your inputs, you need to have a process so that you know what to do time and time again. And really wanted to unpack what it means to be a numbers game. The most high-level sales organizations in the world are closing business at about a 30% close ratio, meaning that for every 10 people they talk to, only 3 of those folks are going to actually buy something, sign a contract, and close it. And so I find a lot of comfort in that, knowing that I can go out there and let it fly, and sometimes just shoot from the hip, and 70% of my opportunities are going to be a no for right now.
And that's industry-wide. Think about that. The top salespeople in the world, if they're hitting 30%, what they call close one, or 30% yeses, man, that's monstrous. Their bonus, they're all like 30%. That means 7 out of 10 are saying no. It's okay,
Yep.
right? It's a no is okay.
Yep. And really, it's important to really grasp this concept so you can go easy on yourself too, and understand that the no's are coming. And so, if you're prepared for it, then it allows you to be yourself through that process anyway. And the amazing thing about sales is when you have a great conversation, you treat people right. They might not buy from you today, but they'll come back and buy from you in 6 months, or in 6 years, or 10 years. And all that work you're doing today is ultimately leading to that. And the other thing I really take comfort in the numbers game is that numbers can be manipulated. And so if you can understand the numbers, then you can manipulate them in your favor. So for me, my process is I know what works for me, and I go to the well about 80% of the time. I got a job to do, and I just start to do it. But 20% of my opportunities, I try to make subtle tweaks and subtle tactic changes until really copious sniff of what did I do different, did it work, did it not, and why. And you'd be surprised, you'll end up doing something really funny that just works for people. It could be a sentence, could be a way you talk about your work, or just how you lead off the call. And that will really stick for you and transform your entire sales.
Yeah, I think that this gave me a lot of freedom because I found that I just didn't know what was going to work when I started. And so I was just trying all these different things. And then you kind of find a niche and then you go, okay, cool. I've got this, what Drake means about going to the well. All right, well, this worked for here. Now I've got these other calls. Let me try something different, right? Like, what if I just did a Loom video for them? Or what if I, sent them a drawing? Or I don't know, like, it allows you to be creative in your process, to understand that you can iterate and then not be so crispy and attached by it, right? Like, if I'm going to try something different with this person, let's see what happens, right? All right, it failed, it didn't work. Okay, now I know. And so all of it is information.
That's right. And last thing to say about numbers is that numbers compound. And so trust that this is a long process and that you're playing the long game. And so putting in the reps now, ultimately is going to compound on itself and give you close more sales.
Right, and you were telling me a story about how when you started at Yelp, like for the first 2 months, you trusted the process and you just did, wax on, wax off, and you didn't have any sales in the first 2 months.
I didn't. I was the worst person in my class.
Right, and then what happened?
Well, I wondered for long and hard if this was really for me first, and then everything just clicked. I was following the process. I was trusting the numbers that these people were putting in front of me, and then all of a sudden I just started to take off. And once I had my process and I understood the numbers, then it eliminated a lot of the unknowns, and I could just be myself. And I really changed my career.
Right, because you were telling me you were in the top 5 of those 3,500 salespeople every year after that.
Yeah, who's counting that? So here is the 6-hour rule.
And we're going to go over this really briefly and let you kind of sink into it with the slide deck later on, but we want to just make sure that you have some understanding of this. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No worries. So I'm bringing this up after process is power because in order to implement a sales process like this one, you have to have that process background. Because on the top here, this is a pretty classic sales process. You have a stranger, think they might be a market for you. You shoot them a couple of emails. They don't really look at them. Maybe they look at the fourth one, fifth one, they're really trying at this point. And maybe they see something they really love and actually agree to get on a phone call with you. And that's amazing. But if you don't have a process for what that phone call is going to look like, or what's going to come after that phone call, then it typically ends up with, hey, this was a really nice chat, thanks for the time, I'll see you later. You don't really talk to these people. And what's important to understand here is that over these touch points, these digital touch points and these phone calls, you probably spend about an hour with this person. And so think about when you make a new friend, or you go buy something of your own. You have to spend a little time with the person or the company or the thing to really believe that you need it or believe in it. And that's where the 6-hour rule really comes from, is that you want to have digital touch points as well as phone calls and other mediums to increase the amount of time that your potential buyer spends with you without you having to be on the phone, or without you actively having to pursue this person.
Right, so research has shown that most sales happen after about 6 hours of contact with the person that is selling something. And so how do you get that 6 hours without having to spend 6 hours with every single person? And there are systems and practices for that. We're going to share some.
Yeah. And so what you all have at your disposal here is amazing work. And what's important to understand that is that you can package that up into assets that can scale beyond just this initial conversation that you're having, talking through it. And so if you're creating a new sales process where let's say you have an email campaign where you include links to your portfolio, or there's incentives for them to go to your Instagram page, and all of a sudden they're watching that latest reel that you did, or that latest time lapse that you did, or painting that you did. All of that is stacking up against this 6 hour threshold, and then you'd be surprised how much better your calls go because they have more context for you. They might feel like they know you as a human being better, and they love your work. All of a sudden, that becomes a place where you don't have to sell anything anymore. You're just consulting them about what they love. And so it really takes the pressure off for both people, because everyone's been in a tricky sales conversation where you're like, oh my God, it's terrible. The more time you can spend with somebody digitally and on phone calls like this, then the easier the close becomes. It doesn't become a close; it becomes a mutual handoff.
Right, you're the gift they're happily paying for. And so think about this. You can set up assets, things like a PDF portfolio, online portfolio, the time lapse, your YouTube channel. You can actually spend 6 hours with somebody where you're not really spending those 6 hours, but they're spending it with you, right? And so they spend those 6 hours with you. You can parallel process that because you've got these assets that are developed, right? Just like Drake's first 2 months weren't looking very good, but by the end of the year he was #1. Parallel process, I mean, you have all of these assets, you have all of these people, and they're having various times with you. Sometimes that 6 hours might take a year for them. We just booked a job with JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory. We're going to be doing work. We've got work for artists at Jet Propulsion Laboratories, right? Took us a year for us to get to a place where we paper that, where they transact, where they say, yes, we're going to do something. So you have these assets, you have them available, and then they'll work on their own until they get to that threshold, and then they're ready to buy. And so having all of that stuff in place allows for you to kind of multiply your presence with your customers. Does that make sense? All right, so that's why, like that bottom path there is, you'll have a closer look at this when you have a look at the slides, but that bottom path is that place where you have assets available for them, and those assets are what we call evergreen, right? It's a portfolio. You don't have to send the same thing to each person. You have this thing all baked and ready, and you can just send it out to everybody and have your career build so you get to this place where they know where to find you because they've spent 6 hours with you, right? So there's maybe hundreds of them. I was going to ask you that too. In a system like this, how many people can you be paralleling on that? Like how many people are in a pipeline like this for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on thousands of accounts with automated emails and touch points and systems that I've set up right now.
Thousands of accounts. All right, so, and he's full-time on that. So you imagine, like with systems in place, you still have time for your art, right? It doesn't have to be all the time, right? And this is his art. So, this is a joy for him. And then these things come in and it brings us to places like this. We're going to do $750,000 at Lytro this quarter using systems like that. But a lot of them, almost all of them, we started talking to months and months ago, right? So.
Exactly right. And really the only thing I'll say about this one here is that having this repeatable process and a framework to go back to just eliminates the guesswork. And so for me, when I first started my sales career, I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to keep track of all these people? And I thought about salespeople, and I'm like, these people who know, they know their wives' names and their kids and like what they're all doing. It's like, it's too much to remember. And so having the systems and the framework in place allows me to just open my computer every morning. I have a task list of everything that I need to do for the accounts that I'm working, and I just follow it blindly. And it eliminates the guesswork. It eliminates my anxiety about, was I supposed to get back to that account yesterday, or was I supposed to send this, to these other people? and really just allows you to relax again and just be yourself inside of the system. And so one of the systems to allow this to function properly is called a CRM.
Right. The tech world has all of these crazy TLAs, three-letter acronyms, right? Now, I'm an artist, but now I'm a tech exec, and I'm in these meetings, and these guys are all, hey, do we have the CRM for SAP for that TLA over there? And I'm just like, what are you guys talking about? Like, I find, like, there's times when, you're in a high-stakes meeting, and I don't want to embarrass my colleagues by going, what is this? And so, like, I'm listening, and I'm going, looking up and trying to figure out, well, what that three-letter acronym is. I end up a lot on Urban Dictionary, and it's the wrong one. So, yeah, go ahead.
It stands for Customer Relationship Management. It's a process in which a business or an organization administers its interactions with customers, typically using data analysis to study large amounts of information.
Whammy. It's a tool. It's a tool to make your life easier.
Exactly.
Super smart people have made these things for exactly the use that you can use it for in ways that are going to make it super easy for you.
Exactly. And really, to summarize, it's just a way to know what's your next honest touch point with any account at any given time.
Right, and I just sorry to interrupt, but that's the thing. Like, can you set yourself up so that all you need to worry about is the next honest thing, right? And like, I'm not swirled by all of the madness that I've got to do on a list of 1,000. Like, what's the next honest thing that I need to do? And these organizational tools, and some of them are free, are available for you.
Yep, down here on the bottom row, just listed some of my favorite tools that I've used over my career. Highlights and shout out to the one on the left, the free work management software as a CRM. Those aren't actual standalone CRMs, but they can function just like them, and you get the benefit of also being able to run and strategize and put a framework against other parts of your business. And so take a look at these. If you're really tied to your Gmail inbox and that's just where you live, Street's a great one. If you run in a bigger shop, you got other people working with you, you may want to look into some of these affordable standalone CRMs. They're really lightweight, kind of out of the box. You can implement pretty easy. But we recommend starting with a free work management software just to get you through your future benefits.
All right, next one is agreements matter. And we're going to go not so deep in the last three here, just because I want to make sure that we have time to deliver all of this stuff. But we'll go a little bit more into this one. Agreements matter. Having clear agreements. We often call it, there's something called scope creep, right? Where they say, well, yeah, can you do a little bit more of this or a little bit more of that? And then the next thing you know, you're getting paid $350 an hour to do the thing that you were supposed to get. Like, it's a $2,000 job. That's fantastic. And then it pushes everything else out, right? So having clear agreements is super important for the whole sales cycle. Inside of that, you want to set achievable boundaries. So you want to have your agreements set up so that you actually can succeed at it. And being clear about the agreements it sort of up levels your professionalism. And so some of the things that go into agreements are the scope of work. What are we creating? What's going to be delivered? What are the steps to get there? What are the roles and responsibilities? I'm going to deliver this at this time. I'm going to deliver you thumbnails at this time and preliminary sketches. I need you to get those back to me by this time in order for us to stay on track, right? And at Lytro, we have a production management team that helps our creatives stay on that so that they don't have to always be tracking all of the deliverables. But if you're doing this yourself, then using some of these CRMs and other things help. Having those agreements with your collaborators, with your clients to say, hey, I need this back by this time if you want it for your wife's birthday here, right? So timing and schedule, also the costs and the payment terms. Do you get paid for extra corrections, right? Are there just 3 corrections? Do you get paid for every correction? Do you just get paid and you forgot to say, hey, I get paid for corrections, right? Where are the corrections happening? Do they happen in the thumbnail stage? Do they happen in the, here's the cost for corrections in the pencil stage. Here's the cost for corrections in the color stage. One of the things that we do at Lytro is we pay our artists their day rate based on their hours. And so if they have to work extra hours, they get paid for it. So they're super happy if the client says, I want this, 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 and this, and they keep going, our artists get paid for it. So we don't have scope creep. And so it's super important to have those agreements in place beforehand so that you don't get caught up by them finding some loophole or something like that. And this allows you to do your best work.
Yeah, and lastly, it can be really helpful to schedule
All right.
and identify, a kickoff or some key event that needs to happen shortly after the contract is signed to incentivize that contract process to move faster, move more smoothly.
Right, so hey, fantastic, we've signed this thing, I'm super excited, let's get started. Why don't we meet Tuesday at 4 and let's talk about it, and we'll just make sure that we're clear on everything, and then we set sail. Right, so having a kickoff meeting, it also involves your client in the process.
Yeah, so a great practice for this would be to try to write your own SOW.
SOW. Hang on. Oh, Jesus, it's not that. Oof. Statement of work, right? So every company has something called a statement of work. You can have one too. As a professional, you should have a statement of work. It's the thing that says, here's what we're up to, right? So one of your practices is to use some of the stuff that's on the other page and this one to write what's a statement of work. Now, if you've never seen one, you can look them up online. You can email us to ask us questions about it. But it's really powerful to have a statement of work, something that creates the agreement that you can work under. Once it's done, you're just like, okay, now let's get started. All right, the next one is do great work. I was talking to Carla Ortiz about this, and she said the real breakthrough in her career was when she decided that instead of just taking jobs, she would do great work. And so this is how you do great work, is you have those agreements in place. You understand where your buyers are. But more than that, doing great work means creating space for you to have a place to do that great work, right? You have a contract, an agreement that's in place. You're not working on your kitchen table that you got to move all the stuff off when you want to make dinner, right? You have a dedicated space for your creativity to flourish. You have time to do it. So doing great work just means so we define like great work takes energy. Energy is the effort of work over time. So you got to make sure you give yourself enough time, enough space, the proper materials, the structure around you to be able to do that great work. There's a thought that there's like noise and then there's signal, right? So there's a signal to noise ratio, they call it. And you have your signal. Whatever that signal is the thing I'm working on, what it is that I want to create, the joy that it brings me. And then there's noise, right? Which was just coming in from that door, right? And so you know what noise is, you know what signal is. Can you turn down the noise and turn up the signal? Now, if you want to stop by our booth, I've got a really neat exercise. We won't have time for it today, but it's just about figuring out what's the signal in your life and what's the noise in your life. And so it's really critical for you to be able to do your great work is to be able to reduce the noise and increase that signal. And whatever it takes to do that, finding solitary space, putting your headphones on, creating space for your studio, like my studio at home is a place that Sammy's been there. You walk in and you want to create, right? Like you step into the place and it's just like effulgent with creativity, right? And there's, you can grab an implement, a piece of clay, there's just everything around, to make art when you walk in. And I just spend a ton of time in there, and it's just it's like my safe place. So having that structure is really important for you to be able to do great work. Oh, right. So John Pomeroy was my mentor at Disney when I was working on Pocahontas. And, I was kind of complaining to him about how I had to do this one scene 23 different times, 115 drawings, and I just could not get it approved. And it was a really subtle place. It was John Smith right after Pocahontas says, "Pocahontas, my name is Pocahontas." And he goes, "What? What did you say?" Right? So it's super subtle, close up. And then I tried it all these different ways. What? What did you say? What did you say? Like all of these different things, right? I did it 23 times before we were finding it. And I was starting to complain. And John was like, "Hey, man, you know what? Go ahead and turn it in. Don't worry about your work. just imagine it blown up 100 times its original size, shown in front of millions of people all over the world forever. I was like, yeah, I'll just go under the door and go back to work on this one, you know. He also said, did you do your best work today? And that's all you really can do. Do your best work today. But know that your work lives on beyond you. So don't put out work into the world that you don't think represents you. Doing great work is one of the most important things for your career, right? So that you're known as someone who delivers, who really brings it. And then that brings us to our last one. Right, we talked a little bit about that, and that is that finish strong, right? That when you finish strong, you leave no doubt, right? You have all of the systems in place. Maybe you can talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, totally. So, it segues nicely back to kind of the process and really just having a framework for success. You'll be able to finish stronger knowing that the 95% of the process is already essentially predefined. It'll look a little different with every buyer, but you know that you're going to go back to your well, you're going to do what you know, you're going to follow your framework, and ultimately it's going to reach to a place where you have the energy and you have the motivation to finish strong. Because for me, I know I've sold some bad contests out there, I'll say it. But those opportunities never left me in a place where I could finish strong and feel good about it. And so it's all about, knowing what that process is and just feeling good for it.
Right, and doing great work and not finishing strong diminishes your great work. So you know that the delivery must delight, right? That what you're delivering to people, like this is the moment. I have a friend who's a 777 pilot, right? He flies a giant airplane. And I'm always nervous flying, but I'm never nervous in the landing, right? Because I know by talking to my buddy that the landing is his game time. Right? Like he is a professional pilot. He's been an Air Force pilot, right? Like when you land that plane, that's him showing off. That's him saying, man, I got this, right? And so they're not trying to bounce that plane. They're trying to bring that thing in as smoothly as possible, right? Like you don't even feel it. And then they can just like have bragging rights, right? So when you land your plane, when you land it smoothly, people are going to take another ride with you. So you want to make sure that your delivery delights them. And so what is it that you can do to finish strong? Right? And so one of the practices here is to think about, what's my delivery? Do I just send them a JPEG? Is that how it works? Do I package it up? Is it in an envelope? Does it have a bow around it? You look at delivery, go by Casey Robbins' booth and look at how just delicious all of her stuff is over there, right? Like she just cares so much about everybody that she does her beautiful work for. Who knows Casey Robbins? You guys seen her work, right? Like it's just delightful. And she really brings a beautiful package to it. And so it's really important to be able to finish strong, to know that there is no doubt, right? Like we are creators. We are here to make the world a more beautiful place, to bring our gifts to people who will see them and happily pay for them. And to finish strong allows us to tell stories of completions that are successful. And I would argue that who we are in the world is the self-talk that we have is a conversation about the things that we've completed and our incompletions, right? And so the more you can complete something powerfully, the more you can tell a more robust, a more powerful, a more solid story about who you are and what you create in the world. And we right now, we need you to create powerfully. I've heard it said that every great crisis this world has ever faced has been solved by profound acts of creativity. And we are in a kind of a mess right now. And so we need profound acts of creativity. We need you to play hard at what you do, to be successful. And so that's why we wanted to present this to you all, because we felt that as much as we talk about creativity, having you have robust businesses that work, that bring your powerful creativity to the world, man, that's what's going to change this place. So,
Just to add to that, I wanted to say this earlier, but I totally believe in all of it because I have been working at LightBox for 2 years and working with the creators we work with. Like, I've been blown away skills that you all develop, like what you guys do is really complicated and amazing. And you covered a lot here that maybe had your head spinning, but I have full faith that if you all can be in this room right now and delivering your art and tools in the way that you're already doing so, I have no doubt you can learn the sales process, or you can operate a really simple CRM, and I have full faith.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because we all get kind of like, oh my God, CRM and TLAs and this business, and like, you know what? You guys run Blender and Maya and all of these other things. Holy cow, like even just Illustrator, Photo freaking shop. I mean, I hate to age myself, but Photoshop 3 in 2006 was just fine. Right? How do you freaking rotate something anymore? I don't even know. Like, I just want to rotate something, right? So you do work with really complicated programs already. So knowing that these CRMs, they're much simpler than Photoshop is. So you can do it, all right? So we got a couple other, oh yeah, there's a bonus that I want to share with you. This stuff is challenging. We artists, we create so deeply from a place that's not just quantitative, like what are our logistics, but we create from our heart. I talk to our clients, and they've got to know that we don't just create from the head, but we have two nuclear engines that make us work. One is the head, and one is the heart. And we need to be emotional. We need to love what we do. And if you think about any master of any discipline throughout the history of time, whether it was someone who used weapons or someone who used flowers, the common denominator of all of those masters was love. They loved what they did, right? And so when you love what you do and you put it out, the challenge sometimes is finding a way to resource. So how do you resource yourself? And so the bonus that we want to talk about here is, what does it take to resource? What do you do to resource yourself? Like coming here, amazing. Sometimes it's a little like, oh, F, like there's just so much amazing shit here. But I said F, but then I said shit. But how do you resource? So there's this beautiful philosophy that's called the cookies and milk philosophy. And it says that if you eat cookies and milk every single day, you will outlive everyone you know. Now, if you don't outlive everyone you know, at least you had cookies and milk every day. Right? Now, the operative word there might be outlive, but also the idea is, what is the cookies and milk for you? Right? What is your cookies and milk every day? Now, it could be cookies and milk, but what is it for you that you get that resources you? And so that's the other practice that we want you to look for. Now, the thing too, let's show the QR codes, and then we can do some questions. All right, so if you want to apply to Lytro and become a Lytro artist, I'll have a look at your portfolio. If you're not accepted, I promise that I will go over your portfolio and let you know what you need to improve. Because here's the thing, we're all in this for the long run. If you're not part of us now, you'll be part of us later, because you're all committed to getting better at what you do. The other one here is just for downloading the presentation. Either one of those will get you a presentation. Okay, so if you're not interested in applying right now, no worries, you don't have to. You can still get this presentation. But if you want to apply, then come and check it out, and I'll have a look, and we'll talk more about it. We do want to, lastly, as a practice for this idea of resourcing yourself, come to booth 821. We have cookies and milk for everybody. We really do. Bought a lot of cookies. And I'm going to eat them if you don't come over. Okay? So come to booth 821 for cookies and milk. And then any other questions you can ask over there. But we do have a few minutes for questions. But for now, we just want to say that's our presentation. We're super excited to have you here. And thank you very much for your attention. Are there any questions? Yeah. Thank you. What's your name? Ann. Oh, Ann. Fantastic. Yeah, if I could start, there's this crazy game that goes on. You go first, right? No, no, you go first. No, you go first. Now, ideally, you get them to go first. What's your budget? What did you have in mind? Have you seen my pricing? Um, you know, things like that. Like I have 3 levels of pricing: presidential, vice president, and or like presidential, executive, and I can't remember what the third one is. Anyway, like Bouguereau, the famous artist Bouguereau, he would have those. He had 4 levels of finish, and so you could, you know, like here's my pricing. You could send a pricing sheet. That's one of the things that we do is we set up a pricing sheet. So when people ask for work, we have a boilerplate we shoot to them. If they have a project that's slightly different, then we can talk more about it.
Yeah, one thing I would add is, as it relates to creating assets that scale beyond you, you could think about creating a social proof asset that basically shows similar work that you do, but you personalize it by saying, here's what the industry looks like. And for stuff that looks like this, is about this much money. You know, or something that looks like this is about this much money. And you can back it out in hours and you can show it from a social proof standpoint so that you can show other folks that have similar things. So it's not just you choosing your price at common hand, then it can help bolster your ability to say, hey, this is just how it is.
Can you define the term social proof?
Yeah, social proof can be, you know, a public pricing sheet from, you know, someone else in the industry that with their prices. It could be, you know, work that you've done in the past, like a case study, that you could show, hey, here's a little referral, or like a referral. Maybe it's a bit more geared towards the work that you all do.
So it's proof in a social setting of a precedent that's been set.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. All right, is that helpful, Ann? Cool. Yes, and what's your name?
My name's Erica.
Erica.
And first I have to tell you, I really appreciate all the feedback because it was not what I was expecting. I thought we were going to go send this and work with our art online. And it was a lot more thorough than expected, so it was great. But earlier on you talked about finding your client. That was a great exercise because I feel like essentially you're finding people that are like-minded because they'll appreciate your work because they like the things that you like.
Yeah.
So it just becomes easier. But in the beginning, as you're becoming a professional, how much of it in finding your voice and what you like to do, you think was influenced by what you think others want to see or for studios when you're trying to find work? Or what percentage of that would you say is also influenced by people that you work for, these professions that are set for you in a day-to-day? Because that's kind of hard to get out of your head and look at yourself and go and by your own, intuition and look at it. So,
Right. Well, I have a practice that I call my medicine. And so it's, you know, I do professional work, and then there's my sketchbook or some other pieces that are just for me. And so, you know, I have professional work, and then I've got my own personal thing where I'm looking for my voice or constantly sort of playing into my voice. And then eventually, you know, the hope is that they cross over, you know, or the trust is that they cross over. Not exactly sure how to answer your question. You know, we all have influences, and you know, there's a thing called object referral and subject referral, right? And so subject referral is I am the owner of my view. And object referral is what social media causes in a lot of us, that I should be skinnier or more fit or blah, blah, blah. It's like I'm referring to an exterior object. And we artists, one of the real keys for us is to find our own voice to refer to us. And so that's just an ongoing practice. There's a Latin phrase called noti seuton. It means know thyself. And so that's really the mission. That's what every Cézanne says, that every painting is a self-portrait. So everything you do is an opportunity for you to get to know yourself better. Noti seuton, know thyself. Any other questions? Yeah. Hi, Bruce.
Yeah, totally. So a lot of that is going to be benchmarked in the industry, like what is a reasonable price for, X thing right now, and then with social proof, case studies, and things of this nature that we can basically just bolster the experience on. And then from a more tactical standpoint, you'll be able to, there's this concept of increasing pricing, but then there's this other concept inside of that is just like increasing the margin. And so if you can do the same piece in 2 hours, and let's say, let me back up for a second. Let's say it takes you 5 hours to talk to the customer, close the deal. If you have systems in place that allow you to close the deal faster, that makes that whole piece more profitable. And so the market will not adjust to you just wanting to raise your price. That requires the entire market to do so because it's a really competitive market. And so it's really more about putting the onus on yourself to do it better, faster, cheaper for yourself so that you're ultimately can do more with less.
That's awesome. Yeah. Good. All right, we have time for one more question. Anybody? Yeah.
Do you have any advice on how to advertise yourself, like in a sense, beforehand, open the word of mouth?
On social media. Well, LinkedIn has I'm open for work. Advertising yourself. I mean, I think that you look for it's the very first thing that we talked about, right? Find where the people, your customers are, and then go there. And so rather than that, I'm having a real challenge with Instagram. Like, it's nice and everything, but I mean, it's just such a shotgun, It's just like, I'm just like throwing stuff out there. It's not targeted. And so, all of this stuff that people tell you about Instagram and all, I'm not convinced, LinkedIn is pretty interesting because it's a little bit more focused and people are there for, almost transactions and getting better at what they do. But I think the real key is just finding who loves your work or who buys it already and market directly to them. I think that these, social media and broadcast opportunities, we're getting more and more niche on stuff, and I don't think that unless you're going to do a Super Bowl commercial and know that somebody out there is going to fall into the giant net that you cast, I think you want to cast more narrowly and target. And so that's what I would offer.
And here's one thing too, your social media profiles that I've seen that works really well, create like a one-sheeter or a little deck about the experience of working with you. Who are you? Why are you, are you open to what type of work are you open to? Commercial, commissions, otherwise. And, what is that process of working with me? And try to, again, just build that image in their head of, okay, when I transact, sorry, what was your name?
Oh,
Ed, yeah.
Ed. So when I want to work with Ed, this is how it's going to be. Ed's going to get on the phone with me, he's going to talk about this stuff, he's going to deliver it in this format, and here's the general timelines, and then you can link that in your profile of every social media account. And so it's like, do you want to work with me? And then there's a link that people can see that resource with. And maybe you even, I love video, just like self-videos, selfies, and it's amazing what those can do. Put that on the sheet as well, just introducing yourself, showing that you're a normal human being, finding your voice and presenting it to someone.
Yeah, speaking of which, yeah, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No worries.
Right, I did want to get a selfie of y'all. Can we do that? Give her a Drake. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're going to get in? All right, cool. All right. You get our wave. 1, 2, 3. Hi, everybody. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. I think that's time for us. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Booth 821 for cookies and milk. And we'll see you all soon.